Welcome back. You're watching The Fix with me, Karima Brown. I'm in conversation with Agri-SA's Christo van der Rede, AfriForum's Kali Krill, Nosy Petersen from the Black Association of the Agricultural Sector, as well as Gafildin Benjamin from AfriWoo. Gentlemen, everyone is agreed that crime in South Africa's rural areas is out of control. There is a big push from various communities for a proper rural safety security plan. From your perspective, Kali, AfriForum has been, highlighting this issue, and have you had engagement with the Minister of Safety and Security and Police, Betty Cele, regarding when the strategy is going to kick in? The community of Senekal did put a time frame on when they want, feedback from the Minister. But from AfriForum's side, what is the push for a rural security strategy? And most importantly, what is the most important component for you of such a strategy?
Yes, of course, such a strategy is needed, and Christo just now mentioned the task team that was set up by Commissioner Sitole. AfriForum is part of that, together with Agri-SA and Tau SA, and we want to make a positive contribution. That is why we are there. And there's, of course, a few issues that troubles us, in the sense that you can have a great plan. If you don't have the ability to implement such a plan, it won't work. So we're looking at a lack of resources, sometimes a lack of skills within the rural communities, which is a negative towards everybody. But fortunately, what we have seen on grassroots level, you get policemen and women that really want to make a difference. And we've been working with them all along. But what we are also saying is, we have to work with the police, but you also have your own responsibility to make sure that you are safe, that your family is safe, and that your community is safe. And within the framework of the law, we are allowed to set up community safety structures.
But Mr. Kriel, let me interrupt you there. On this channel, ENCA, my colleague Govan Whittles did an exclusive report that suggested that communities in the Free State area are not just putting together, community safety, that they are in fact using people from the former Israeli army, and that the training takes the form almost of paramilitary groups. As AfriForum, will you categorically condemn the formation of self-styled, paramilitary groups, particularly in a place, such as Senekal, and in the farming communities and rural areas in South Africa generally?
Well, our call is that we will support structures that happen within the framework of the law. Anything that goes outside of the framework of the law, we won't associate ourselves with. But the problem we have, of course, and I also listened to Mr. Petersen just now, there's a lot of sweeping statements being made with regard to farmers, saying your farmers now have paramilitary groups, where it's people that might not even be farmers and that wear uniforms and that are on the lunatic fringe. Also to say farmers are those that kill farm workers. There's a few unfortunate incidents and we condemn that. But to make sweeping statements is very dangerous in this situation, because we know farmers and farm workers are being killed, disproportionate in terms of their population size to the rest of the country. And for people to make farmers the perpetrators, I think is irresponsible and dangerous.
Okay, let me bring in Gafildin. Gafildin, you work with farm workers. And it's a well-known fact, as I said in my introduction, that farm workers are of the most marginalized, with the least set of protections under our labor legislation. From where you're sitting, you've also served on, forums that looked at rural safety. Do you think that the fact that farmers, farm workers are organizing themselves to secure their safety, do you think that this is because the state has literally failed rural communities and everyone who lives there?
Look, yes, Karima, the advice that I firstly want to give to Christo and his colleagues that sit on these, or this task team for rural safety, is to include farm workers. You will find that the same people that your first responders are usually your farm workers. So, but the situation that you will find is that most of your first responders, other than the police, are armed people, armed security. So the role of the farm worker is quite limited. But from where I'm involved, you find that farm workers are organizing themselves with the owner of the farm, with the farm manager, with the supervisor, to ensure that all of them are safe, the farming community are safe. But the problem that we have is that it is a slow response from our police. There is a lack of also respect towards the role that the farm workers can play. You would find that farmers would first rely on outsiders and organize themselves with outsiders instead of putting their faith and trust with farm workers. But I would just like to add also, Karima, you spoke about protections and the marginalized and vulnerable farm workers. It is true. There's a lot of insecurities. They have insecurities of tenure. They have insecurities of food, also social insecurities. So all these things are impacting. What do farm workers that reside on farms, what do they do? Pardon. How do they organize themselves in terms of socialization? So they only know life at night on farms, especially weekends. So they should then be the eyes and ears of the business, of the operations, of their own small communities. But you find that they are even marginalized in that sense. So it is a difficult situation. Now you also find, like Nozi said, and I'm glad he brought this to the attention of the country. In the Western Cape, on a lot of farms, Karima, places that you would never have thought drugs and gangs would proliferate and would spread. It is there. It is in places like Wellington, Wolseley, Ceres, Tilburg, it's in Garabou, and Nozi mentioned further north of the Western Cape. It will spread if the police don't stop. Farmers have confided in me to say, this is the situation. Some of our more senior farm workers are also hooked on drugs. So those are the type of issues. And who brings those drugs? There are vehicles parked on the roadway where they wait for the exchanges. And it's a difficult situation for farmers that confide in you to assist farm workers. But I agree with everyone. It's a situation where farm workers must be at the center of safety.
Absolutely.
You can't have a situation whereby the farmer alone has security alarms, has everything sorted out. Him and his family are armed, and farm workers, a door can just be kicked in and they're at the mercy of criminals. So,
absolutely.
It's really important that we should look at that.
Hold that thought. Christo, the changing nature of what happens in rural communities is obviously something that both Nozi and Gavildin has spoken about. If you look at coastal towns, particularly in the Western Cape, you will see the proliferation of drugs because of the power and the influence of organized crime on the legitimate economy in places like the Western Cape. To what extent is Agri-SA alive to these changes, to the way in which it impacts the political economy of small rural communities? Because obviously, if you have a situation where the resources are packed with the farmer in most cases, whether that farmer is black or white, and farm workers are the ones that have very few protections, criminal gangs are obviously able to exploit that situation because people can make money on the side. Then you don't have communities that have vested interest in keeping everyone safe, keeping people, together, being able to work with law enforcement. And criminal syndicates are obviously the ones that will look at these weaklings and infiltrate in such a way that they are able to, further their criminal activity through the existing inequalities as they obtain in rural communities, Christo.
Karima, we were part of the National Development Program, actively participated in that. We were part of the Pakisa program. Together with the unions, we shared 5 weeks of interaction, coming up with plans. One of the plans that we've proposed from our side was the housing program for farm workers. Because we've said, if we really want to deal with the injustice of the past, we must give every person in this country some form of tenure of security. You cannot have a situation where black people were pushed into homelands, where people were pushed out of the areas where they used to live due to all kinds of apartheid legislation, and still continue denying people ownership. So if we as farmers want ownership for ourselves, and we want that to be embedded in the Constitution as it is, then we must expand and enhance or allow every person in this country, whether they live in informal housing or on a farm, wherever they live, we must find ways to, and especially in communal areas, because it's only through ownership that you can create real and lasting wealth. A simple example, I started off, my parents never had tenureship. They lived in an area where the church was the owner. When I moved out, I got myself a house, and I sold out the house after 30 years, and with that money, I could do something else. So we need to create wealth. So one, we've got a massive economic problem in this country. We've got a government that is so obsessed with centralizing the power of economic activity that at the end of the day, if you now sit with a massive unequal problem, more inequality due to unemployment. Unemployment is the biggest driver of poverty. So what has happened during those Pakisa processes? None of those plans came to fruition. Our plan required that the Department of Housing, Department of the COCTA, all of the other departments become part of that. All of them just, were not committed to that process. Government has, again, another master plan on the table. The President has announced a structural reform program. But if you don't have a capable state, if you don't have capable people that want to drive transformation and commitment and see to it that these plans come to fruition, then we're on a lost course.
Okay, Christo, hold that thought. We've got to take a short break. When we come back, we will be talking about, one, whether the state's efforts at addressing inequality has been hampered by a lack of change or by corruption, as was found by the High Panel headed up by former President Kgalema Motlanthe, particularly when it comes to land redistribution. We're also going to be looking at whether the rumors coming out of Senekal that the police might in fact well be involved in the stock theft that's happening in the area. So don't go anywhere. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue with this conversation.